All right, we're going to start letting folks in. Hello and welcome as you all come in today. Hello, very excited to see you all. We're just going to let a few more people trickle in and then we'll go ahead and get started. As I say every time, we're on time in regular time, but we are still early for New Mexican time. So we're going to give it a few more moments. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. All right, hopefully you all can see my presentation. Does everybody see the presentation? All right, thank you for that thumbs up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started and go through announcements. Very excited today to have all of you here today, as well as our special guest. Today, we have a presentation for New Mexico 5 Actions Program. Um, and this will be improving access, continuity, and outcomes in resource-constrained systems. Dr. John Fitzgerald, who is the founder, will give a presentation, as well as Claire from 988. So very excited to have them all today. As normal, we will go through our land acknowledgement. The New Mexico Alliance of Health Councils gives sincere gratitude for the opportunity to live and work here on ancestral and unceded lands that have been cared for by our state's original people of the Apache Nations, Pueblos, and Navajo Nations. We honor and respect the indigenous cultures, traditions, languages, and the rich contributions that continue to shape New Mexico. Together, we acknowledge the history and impact of genocide, dispossession, colonization, and ongoing systemic inequities on indigenous communities. As a collective, we commit ourselves to working towards justice and reconciliation, dismantling inequitable systems, standing in solidarity with and respecting relationships with Indigenous people. The Alliance affirms Indigenous sovereignty, self determination, and self governance of New Mexico's tribes, pueblos, and nations. And in offering this land acknowledgement, we encourage you all to reflect on your own relationship to the traditional lands and take concrete actions to dismantle systems of oppression where Indigenous peoples are empowered and celebrated. And we've got a few announcements. The first one, I just want to remind you of Share New Mexico. The Alliance manages Share New Mexico and has for many years. And just reminding you of this phenomenal resource that we have in our state. There are over 15,000 resources statewide hosted on Share New Mexico. And this is just a little picture of what it looked like in the last year. So we had 500,000 resources accessed, which is amazing, especially for a state with only 2.2 million people. Um, and in this process, we have a lot going on here. So, one, it's not just a website with resources. This includes multilingual navigational specialists that help people connect to these resources. And you see in this prior year, we've had 95 needs met around housing and 78 crisis referrals refilled. So when people make inquiries to this resource, we have people connect with them to make sure that they can get to where they're trying to go. Over 66 types of critical services were accessed, and 307 crisis inquiries took place, and that included seniors, veterans, ex-offenders, and disability, with over 1,000 individuals served with navigation, which that's something we're very proud of. This is the most comprehensive online resource directory statewide with multilingual national or navigational support. So you can check that out at www.sharenm.org. Please make sure your communities are aware of this phenomenal resource, especially those of us who are helping people help people or just helping people. All right, that's it on Share New Mexico. Also, want to remind you a couple of other things. Make sure that if you have any of your amazing stories taking place, and you would not only like to communicate that to your community, but also additional communities around the state. This can assist with securing funding and just letting people know the good work that you're doing, maybe other partners, maybe regional partners that might not be aware of the good work you're doing. Go ahead and send us that information so that we can blast that out for you and help make those connections for you. And just the reminder, if you haven't yet been on our radio show To Your Health, please contact us for that as well. We'd love to feature you and the amazing things you're doing in your community. Also, membership agreements, we still have a few that are still out. So reach out to us if you'd like more information on that or if you need any assistance with that. Let's see. Also, our peer learning series has successfully been continuing since we started it earlier this year. Next week, we have a session on data tracking and evaluation. So those of you who attended the statewide meeting but could not attend my class on data tracking and evaluation, that will be the repeat of it. So if you attended that session and you enjoyed it and you'd like a refresher, that's also available for you as well. And then we have more upcoming sessions later in April, throughout June, in leadership development, community outreach and engagement, marketing and communications, and we have two for referral navigation and navigation systems. You can scan that QR code or go to that link if you need access to those and you'd like to register. If you run into any questions around that, please feel free to give me an email or a call. And very excited to introduce our guest today and hand it over to them. First, we have Dr. John Fitzgerald. He is the founder of New Mexico 5 Actions Program. Dr. Fitzgerald has been clinical faculty in the Department of Psychiatry at Oregon Health and Sciences University since 1998, adjunct faculty in the Systems Science Graduate Program at Portland State University since 2007, and a licensed professional counselor since 2001, and a certified addiction specialist since 2006. He has also had private practice since 2015, and since 2018, he has dedicated his efforts to developing digital programs that enhance access to behavioral health care. We also have Claire Carmody. Did I say that right, Claire? Carmody?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Um, and she is with New Mexico's 988 program as a program manager with Protocol Services. Claire brings extensive experience in crisis counseling and a strong commitment to expanding access to behavioral health supports across New Mexico. Claire is proud to work in communities that shape her. She began her work at Protocol Services as a counselor and later a clinical supervisor, bringing hands-on experience to her leadership of the state's 988 program. So very excited again to have both of you with us today, and I will go ahead and hand it off to you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having us. I'm gonna talk just briefly about 988 to make sure you all are aware, and I'm gonna drop one of our flyers in the chat, as well as my email address. So I work with Protocol Services. We're the operator of the 988 system for New Mexico. So anytime anyone calls, chats, or texts us in New Mexico, we're the folks that answer. You might have previously known us as the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line that started back in 2013. So when 988 rolled out, we just kind of folded that into the work we were already doing as a statewide access point. And so John represents one of our programs, which is the New Mexico Five Actions program. So he's going to have a chance to dive in a little deeper there. And he'll mention how um, Five Actions can link folks back to 988 and our warm line as well. But I'll post some information in my email. Feel free to email me if you have any other questions or thoughts about 988. I'll hand it over to John.
Thanks, Claire. All right, everybody. So appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about the New Mexico Five Actions program. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some slides and I'm going to just sort of walk you through a few of those. And then what I'd like to do is a live demo, and I'll walk you through some of the pieces of the program. I'll come back, finish up with a few slides, and then we'll open it up to Q&A for both me and Claire. All right, so I'm going to start by sharing and my desktop and slides. And here we go. All right. Claire, heads up. You can see that? Yes. Okay. So today what I want to do is, again, really give you an introduction to the New Mexico Five Actions program and really speak to the idea of how this can enhance access, the continuity, and also outcomes in this resource-constrained system. So just a little bit about myself. I think Joseph already went through all of this. The one thing that I do want to highlight is right before COVID, I worked for 2 years for the Legislative Assembly in Oregon, which is really where I reside. And I'll talk a minute about why I spend most of my time in New Mexico, but I'm in Oregon. But I did a 2-year report looking at all of the public funding spending on the addiction treatment system. And I published that report in September of 2019. And on the right is a diagram that I developed as I traveled all over the state and tried to map out all of these different departments. And I'm not going to go through the diagram, but I put it up there just to show that it's a really complicated system. And I know it's no different in New Mexico because I've been talking to a lot of these different agencies. What I concluded at the end of that report was that there's really no reliable outcome data. We sort of knew what people received, whether they got residential, intensive outpatient, medicines, but we had no idea whether any of that really worked to change behavior. The last study that had been done, and it was a very small study, was back in 2011. So it's really hard to know how to navigate and improve the treatment system when we don't really have any outcomes and know where we're going. So I say that because in New Mexico, you guys have very similar challenges. I'm sure you're all aware of the accountability report from Medicaid and the New Mexico Behavioral Health Assessment and Feasibility Study. And again, it says pretty similar things that I found in my report, which is there's really severe provider shortages. I think one of the things that I did find surprising, and most of you are probably aware of this secret shopper survey, that it said it took an average of 14 calls to be able to schedule a new patient, and that there was delays of over 11 days. Again, part of why I put this up there is to also level set that I don't think New Mexico is so different than Oregon and other states. And the conclusion in these reports was very similar, that there's a lack of utilization and performance data. So in some ways, what we want to do is continue to think about what kinds of programs can help, again, enhance access, connect the dots, help people who are suffering from mental health and addiction. Now, one of the things that motivated this program early on was this New Mexico substance use disorder treatment gap analysis. And what you see in the table on the right, just based on substances, is about what they found was about 135,000 people really needed treatment. And at that time, we would often say that about 10% of people could access care. So that's where we ended up by this smaller number of around 13, 14,000 people. Since this report came out and we've had COVID, that number has dropped in half. So now, based on specific data on New Mexico, the number of people that receive substance use disorder treatment was about 5%. When you look at who received mental health treatment, a little over 20%. So in some ways, we really have to do better. We need to find ways of reaching out into the population and helping people that are suffer. But there's one little problem, and that is that in this report by the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, when they ask a bunch of questions and they arrive at the conclusion that who they're talking with has a substance use disorder, they follow that up with questions around, are you interested in treatment? And 95% of those people say, nope, I don't need treatment. I have no interest. So to a large extent, substance use disorders and addictions are really a motivational problem. Now, when you reach out and you say, well, why are you not interested in treatment? All of the things that you could probably imagine, such as stigma, barriers around cost, transportation. There's no treatment available in some of the rural frontier communities. They're not culturally adaptive, a variety of different barriers. So I think this is another piece that motivated me to think about how do we utilize digital tools to reach out into this ambivalent population and help them. So the New Mexico 5 Actions program really started back probably 10 years ago, 2015, 16. And one of the things that happened was this technological sort of advancement of smartphones in the market. You can see in the graph on the left, it went from 2% in 2005 up to 80% in 2016. And of course, we're way above that now in 2026. The same thing happened for broadband internet. So are these two forces combining that for me, and I know for a lot of people said, okay, we need to start thinking about how to use technology to help people. At the same time, I was transitioning into working on doing some of the research for the state report. And I started developing videos related to how to help people based on my clinical experience over the years. And as I was building out this platform, going into a studio, recording videos, I was introduced to Phil Evans, who's the CEO at Protocol. And when I first met him, in the room were all these people taking calls, crisis calls, and this light bulb went off that what if we could combine a digital platform with 24/7 phone support? So he and I talked about it. And then, I don't know, I think it was a year later, I was continuing to work on the program. And the opioid money started flowing out to the states. New Mexico got some of that money and trained Protocol staff on naloxone. And there was a little bit money left over. So Phil called me and said, what do you think of us pitching to New Mexico about finishing your program and launching it in the state of New Mexico? And that's what we did. And I finished off the program and we were ready to launch towards the end of 2019. And then there was administrative change. There was also COVID. And so we launched in November of 2020. So this program is it's a self-guided program to help people understand substance use, mental health issues, and how to change their behavior. Because it's licensed by the Behavioral Health Services Division, it's free to the end user. So one of my motivations in talking to you all today is hoping that you will spread the word on this program to those out in your communities, to people who could benefit. It's mobile friendly. You can access it on a mobile phone, tablet, computer. We're in the process of actually appifying it. This is built on a WordPress site, but we're going to have it as iOS and Android so that people can just download the app. And there's over 125 videos. So we rehearsed this. And what I want to do now is give you a quick demo of some of the pieces of the program. And then, like I said, I'll come back and we'll finish up with a few slides. So I'm going to go here. And are you all able to see that? Claire, can you nod that you can see it?
I can see
Yes,
it.
you can see it. Okay, great. So this is the website. This is the homepage. And what we've learned over time is that less is more. So the program has gone through a number of iterations over these last 6 years. One of the biggest is that we have removed the need for a login and a password. Early on, we did that partly because we were protecting proprietary content and we wanted people to use the program to be in New Mexico to access the phone support. But recently, talking with Behavioral Health Services Division, we decided we're going to open it up. So there is no login and password. Anybody can go on here now and check out the entire program and use it. We've got this assessment that we've sort of highlighted that we'd like people to use or we encourage. Now, they can skip it if they want, but I'm going to just show you very quickly that when you click on this assessment, um, it'll come up here, that we've got about 15 questions on a variety of different symptoms and mental health issues. But if I go through here and I click, and I'll show you sort of what we have on here, and what you're seeing is questions on relationships, trauma, and felt numb. We're also then moving into some questions on depression that are based on the PHQ-9. We do have a question on suicide ideation. We've got some questions that come out of the GAD-7 on anxiety and addictions, and you hit submit. And I cross my fingers every time I do this, and here are the results. So one of the things that we're trying to do in this program that's unique from other digital apps that you might see is that if people come on with a particular symptom that they want to explore, typically a substance use disorder addiction, because that's what we've been putting this program together, they may all of a sudden see that there's these other issues that relate to, say, a drinking problem. They might be surprised to see anxiety or trauma relationships. And part of this is this idea of an aha moment that as they go into this content, they can start understanding that part of why people struggle with substance use disorders and addiction is that most of it starts 80 to 90% starts early in life, 15, 16, 17 years old. And what differentiates people who go down that path are these underlying drivers, such as insecure attachment, relationship issues, trauma in all forms, and then other co-occurring disorders. And so part of what comes out of my own clinical experience is that if we're going to have good outcomes and help people, we have to help them understand these underlying drivers and address them. So these all then are hyperlinked. If I click on the addiction, what you'll see here is the first module comes up, Why Addiction Starts. And there's a variety of videos that people can watch. All these videos are 3 to 5 minutes long. I will push one of these videos, and I think hopefully the sound is working, and you can listen to just a couple minutes of this video.
Of all the factors that likely contribute to going down the path of addiction, perhaps the one that is the most common but least understood and addressed in most addiction treatment programs is trauma. Trauma, in the broadest sense, is any experience that causes unbearable psychological or emotional pain. The event might be a one-time occurrence or a trauma that occurs over time, for months or even years.
So I will stop there. Did you guys hear that okay? Just to make sure.
Loud and clear.
Good. Okay. So there's a variety of videos based on these different underlying drivers. And at the end, we can go to the next module and it will again show why does addiction get harder to stop? And you can see that we're starting to talk now about how does the brain get hijacked? Part of what has been done in these videos is that we've tried to take really evidence-based some pretty technical information and really put it into storytelling, bringing it down to these 3 to 5 minute videos that people can understand. So if I go to the menu over here and I click on this, what you'll see is a variety of different places that people can go. So we have, first of all, these assessment tools. This is a brief assessment that was the 15 questions that kind of get people into the program. But there's also a full assessment that includes all of the validated assessment tools that were used in the brief assessment. So that includes a tool by NIH on relationships. It includes the PCL-5 for trauma, the PHQ-9 for depression.
John, I think you might have froze.
Yes, Dr. Fitzgerald, if you can hear us, sometimes muting your video will help free up that bandwidth. Apologies, everyone. We'll just give him a few moments. I believe he's at a hotel, so we'll just blame the hotel's internet. But I imagine he's logging right back in, and we should see him shortly.
I can hop hop in kind of where he was at. Can you also
Perfect.
see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So, if you look here, this is, kind of the drop-down menu he was showing you. So it just gives people these kind of larger headings of where the different videos will take you. This is a lot of educational. This is really tools for change. It's going to give some information about mental health kind of in general, which is really helpful for folks to just learn a little bit more. What is anxiety? What does it even look like? Um, One of the things I like to highlight is this one right here, get the treatment when you need it. Um, this was one of the most common sections I referred people to when I was doing work as a crisis counselor, because it has these videos, like you can see here, Brian Cerna, navigating the treatment system. So these are really, really helpful for those folks who, are curious about seeking help. They're not quite sure. Maybe they're, kind of going back and forth about it. And it really helps to validate how complex the system can be. It explains out for people what they can expect when they're getting ready to engage in the system. So it's a really helpful spot. And then, of course, we're connected to the search engines here that the Healthcare Authority has asked us to use, Treatment Connections. So it just gives some tips and tricks for how folks can get started. It's also going to refer people back to the phone support, like we had mentioned. John, I see you're back on, so I just took over a little, but
Lee,
I got us.
I know I had some
Yeah.
internet just drop me, but thanks, Claire. Keep going.
Yeah. And then, as I had mentioned, you'll see the mental health support. So this again is getting back to what John had mentioned, is we really wanted to find a way to address some of the root causes, because we know that, even if folks are decreasing addictive behavior, if they still have, struggles in their relationship, ongoing trauma, it can be really hard for them to, get back to a more balanced place. Um, and I'll leave some of it so you all can look as well. And then during resources, again, it's going to connect folks back to 988 for that crisis support, as well as connecting them to some other more long-term resources. Did I miss anything, John?
Did you talk about help for families and help for loved
Oh,
ones?
I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
you want me to do it?
go ahead, John.
Yeah, so part of this program that makes it unique is that we've added in content related to the community reinforcement family training approach, CRAFT, that was actually developed in New Mexico by Bob Myers. Some of you may be familiar with Brian Cerna, who I think has a contract with the state and has done a lot of trainings. But I find this really, really useful because, and I'll show you some data in a minute, that we've had people come onto the platform that want to help a loved one. And so we have a variety of different videos. Here you can see Brian. Um, and I just, again, wanted to make everybody aware that substance use disorders, addiction, they occur in a family context and within a community. So in some ways, this craft content, I think, is really important for some of our audience. It's about 15% of people that come on this platform that are actually family members looking to help a loved one. So I think you probably covered the rest of it, Claire. So if you want to stop sharing, I'll share the last few of my slides and then we can open it up for questions. And I'm going to share, and I want to share my sound. And I will just go here right now. Okay. All right. You guys can see that? Yes? So we've already sort of went through the menu, which is kind of, again, this foundational hub of resources. I just want to emphasize that this is not a specific treatment, and it definitely does not replace treatment. Again, it's designed as sort of adjunctive in some ways, and for people that can't access care. Now, for a while, we did a baseline survey so we could just get a sense of who's using this program. And on the left, you can see that about 50% of people would come on and say, I want help for myself. 25% of people were healthcare professionals. And it doesn't surprise us because this was launched during COVID when many people were moving into virtual and trying to understand how to work with people over the internet, doing virtual sessions. And that's really continued. We see that about a quarter of people are working in treatment programs, 14% how to help a loved one, like I just mentioned, and the remaining in the justice system and other sorts of agencies. We have estimated early on 40 to 50 people that were actually signing up with the login and the password. Now that we've opened it up, we use Google Analytics, which I think even for me are a little complicated, but they're on there. But I want to point out the table on the right because we've done follow-up. And for those who say they're seeking help for themselves, what you see there is 28% say that they have moderate issues with addiction and 44% say that it's severe. When you look at how do they rate their mental health, including their mood and their ability to think, 37% fair, 35% poor. And at the very bottom, when you ask people whether engaged in treatment, 65% of people say that they're not. So in many ways, we're reaching a population of people that are really struggling with a variety of symptoms and they're not accessing treatment. So we also did this assessment of symptoms. I showed you this assessment tool. And the real key takeaway from here is what I mentioned earlier. People don't just suffer with a substance use disorder or one addiction. They actually suffer with a constellation of symptoms, a variety of different symptom groups. So if you see somebody getting a positive on the audit C for alcohol, at the same time, 81% of the time, they're embracing that they also have trauma. 81% of the time, anxiety. If you look at the DAS-10 for drugs, 85% trauma, 81% behavioral addictions at the same time, methamphetamine and sex. So these are different combinations. The point here, the key takeaway is that as we're building these digital platforms, we need to continue to recognize that people who are suffering have a variety of different things that we need to address at the same time. And that's partly really what we're trying to do in this program, is be realistic about when people come in for treatment. Again, they're suffering with a group of these symptoms. So that's really an important piece of this program that we're continuing to develop. I want to play just a testimonial for you, and then I've got one more piece, and we'll wrap up with some questions and answers.
I kept on this journey, because in the end, I realized that I'm a better person without substances included on me. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I'm a better worker, better employee, better coworker, better brother to my brothers, and a better son to my parents. Why, honestly, I think I never really wanted to get help, until I talked to my parents, and honestly, I would hide it from them too, And I'm a grown man now, but through your guys' videos, I was able to just heal that relationship with them, and build that trust. Not that I had damaged it, but I had never entrusted in them that I had a problem with substances, and my brothers. And they were very supportive, and yeah, I was actually able to acknowledge that I had a problem, and you guys provided me with the tools and continue to provide me with the tools of different videos to watch, because it's always important. I can't, I'm a tradesperson. Everything I work on, I have to know how it works. I work with electricity now that I do power line construction and maintenance. If you go up there and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to kill yourself. Same thing with substance abuse, If you think you can just do it all by yourself, and you're going to end up in a really bad state of depression, and probably fall back into use. And with your guys' informative methods and also descriptions of, the nature of abuse, I never knew it was so complex, with the brain. I mean, I'm able to work on it with my relationships too. I had with my wife, I had a little bit of, we would deal with problems a little bit more heated than we do now, now because of what I've learned, I'm able to just sometimes come back 5 minutes later, and talk about things. I mean, it's really good program. I like all the information it has. As far as addiction, I'm able to avoid triggers. I've honestly, I don't even have any problems like being around alcohol,
All right. And so this quote that he says, if I would have been able to get a hold of this program 10 years ago, it would have saved me 10 years of having that problem. And so I am going to stop sharing now and open it up for discussion, Q&A. Anything that you have questions about the program, addiction, mental health, things that Claire and I can address for you. Yes, doctor. You're on mute, I think. Yep. Okay. No worries.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry
there we
about
go.
that.
Yes.
I have some questions and some comments. Thank you very much for the model that you just shared with us. As a mental health provider and mental health assessment person for the courts up here in Taos, when I meet with the young males um, and I speak to them about their issues that they're facing, I tend to draw a pathway from birth to where they're at, as well as I also draw the brain and talk to them about educate them about the brain. So that what you have, I mean, I just got, oh my God, this is great. Because the more that we educate people as to that physical and organic contribution to our decisions and our behaviors, I think that you'll be able to hook them up more to realize how the addiction and the mental health issues come about, and not blaming themselves as much as usually people do. And when I have done similar interventions, the individuals, when before they leave, they thank me. So that shows me that educating the individuals and not holding them, how could I say, putting them down for their addiction and for being in the criminal justice system is something that we have to be very sensitive to. And if we really want them to get into the recovery path. So thank you very much for your for your model and the contribution you're making. But I also have a question, and this question is to Claire. Claire, I live up in Taos, and what I hear from the community folks is that it's very difficult for them to get the help they need when they use 988, and particularly for those who speak Spanish. So has the system been upgraded? Because I hear contradictory feedback from the state. Yes, we do have people from here, from New Mexico, that are responding, and yes, we do have people who speak, the language, Spanish speaking. But then when I speak to folks, they say, no, that's not my experience. So if you could give us an update on that, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so 988 does have a Spanish speaking specific option. So if you dial 988 and press option 2, you go to a Spanish language call center that is nationally ran.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is where those folks are
Okay.
likely going if they press option 2. What we've found is that they do sometimes have a really long wait time
Mm-hmm.
at the option 2 call center.
Mm-hmm.
And so if folks wanted to, they could call back, stay on the line to get to New Mexico, and we do have interpreters.
Mm-hmm.
We do have staff that speak Spanish, but what we haven't been able to really figure out a solid way to do like all of the language tests and things and make sure. So that's kind of the piece. But we do have interpretation services, and in New Mexico we have a really quick answer rate. So usually our average speed of answer is about 14 seconds. And so that would be, I'm wondering kind of if that might be what's happening, is that the Spanish language line has a longer wait. And, if someone feels, I think the good part about that is if that's a priority for you, you absolutely can stay on, and, maybe just educating our community that there is a longer wait on that one. That's definitely something I could add to my presentations just to help people understand
Yeah.
what they might
I think that would be
expect.
helpful. And
Yeah.
you have people who respond to the calls from New Mexico as well.
Yeah, so we do have staff in New Mexico. I think we
Mhm.
have about 40 people here.
Okay.
And we do also have counselors from other states.
Hmm.
The reason being is, as in order to get to the scale, the sheer volume of calls,
Sure.
um, it would be difficult to get everybody living in the same state. But we do have about 40 people
Okay.
that live here. I live here. We also do training specific to New Mexico, cultural considerations,
Hmm.
the history of the behavioral health system here, things like that
Hmm.
to help build context.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that because that's an issue that always comes up when we distribute the 988 flyers and other stuff. So yeah, I would appreciate that. And the other ask that I have, John, um, do you think I'm the chair for the local collaborative 8? And do you think you could kind of be our guest and give a little presentation that which includes Union, Colfax, and Taos? I think that your model, I find it wonderful, and I think that that would be something that people from up in that area, frontier area, would could use as well. So if they're informed about it and how it works, I think it would be a good contribution to the area up there.
Yeah, happy to do it. I've been talking with, I think, is it Karen Canaday? I think
Yeah, Karen. Yes, yes, she's
Karen,
the
yeah,
review. Yeah.
about how to get this out. So yes, absolutely. Email me. Let's talk, and I'd be happy to do
Okay.
a presentation.
Okay, great. That's wonderful.
Everybody else on the call as well. If there's
Yeah.
opportunity, because that's what we're trying to do is just get the
Yeah.
word about the program. So
Yeah, I
and
know that that would help a lot of people up there. Yeah. So
great.
is your email in the chat box?
I can give it to everybody right now.
Okay.
You can also put the contact, but it's Dr. JohnFitz@gmail.com. drjohnfitz@gmail.com. And feel free, any of you can email me and we can connect and talk offline about presentations or however else I might be able to help you.
Oh, thank you very much. By any chance you have it in Spanish or is just in English?
So we have the transcripts that can't
Hmm.
be translated. The videos are not, but we are now in this age of AI where we are looking at a variety of different ways of upgrading content, and so that is very much something we're looking at.
Yeah.
I also know that reaching people that don't have access to phones and internet, that's really important to us as well. So
Yeah.
we want to stay in conversation and collaborate on that. I will say this program is a collaboration. It's not just me
Hmm.
out there trying to develop it. And yes, Elias, how are you? I recognize a couple of people on this call. So yeah, please stay in touch, and we will continue to try to work on how do we reach people that are in those rural frontier communities that may not have access to this kind of a resource.
Thank you very much, and you will hear from me. So thank you.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Any other questions or comments on the program for Claire or I?
Hi again. I just had
Hi,
a quick
how are you? It's good
question.
to see you.
Good, you too. Yeah, I was like, I need to see this presentation.
Uh,
Good. Yeah, I just had a question. What's the best way, I guess? I just want to make sure we're approaching this, like, what's the word? Yeah. I just want to see what would be the best way to promote this program, like when we're speaking about it on our end. I don't know if there's like a script you guys use or something. So just some tips. I know like I said, we included in our packet. We've been doing a lot of expert training, so we always include it as part of our trainings as well. So we have it there.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure like we're helping promote it as much as possible, or if you have any additional tips or
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think what we can do is we can kind of review the flyers and the different documents we have. But I think after being here all week and talking to a variety of people, I think what we need to do is create some short videos that you can use. And so I can do that where I can do kind of a walkthrough of the program that I did here, maybe for 3 to 5 minutes, something
Mhm.
like that, that if you think that would be helpful, that we could push out. And then I think there's sort of two that I was thinking about creating. One is for people to know about the program, and then the other potentially would be to push it out on actually people that would use it. So I think we're talking about some different video tools, but I'd be happy to follow up with you and kind of talk about resources and other things.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Like I said, I just want to make sure we're helping you guys as much as possible on our end as
I
well.
appreciate it. Yes, we will
Awesome.
talk. We will
All
definitely.
right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Other questions we can answer today? Going once? Twice? Okay, well, Joseph, I think I'm going to turn it back to you. And thanks everybody for your time and attention today. And please reach out if we can help you with anything. All right, thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much for that presentation. I love that a connection was even made today up in Taos in that region. So really appreciate that. That's why we do this. So very excited that you guys could come. Excited for all of you else who have come from across the state. I've got nothing else from you aside from we're always here to help you at the Alliance. If you have any other questions for John or Claire, they've left their email addresses. If you need anything else for whatever reason, feel free to reach out to me or anybody else on the team and we'll get you connected. Otherwise, have an amazing weekend and we will give you the gift of 14 minutes. So you're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.